Hey, everyone. Welcome to this summit. Super excited to have all of you here. I see a few more people are joining. Thanks a lot for taking the time to spend this day with us. My name is Natalie, and I'll be the host of the summit today. Welcome to the From Great to Elite Summit. This is a 2-day online summit where more than 30 top speakers and experts in the coaching and training space share advanced scaling strategies and fastest way to add a couple $100,000 in new MRR next month. You'll benefit the most from this event if you are, number one, an established high growth business in the online education or training company. Now, we're not talking about flash it, download type of training company. There are so many very niche training companies that are doing really well. So, for example, there's like a school of architects that are planning to open their own practice that I spoke with the founder of this company recently. And then there's school of welders or a coaching company for medical practices. There are so many of you. So anyone who has 5, 10, maybe more people on their team doing between 1 to 10 million in annual revenue. And the most important thing is you have outgrown the basic marketing problems and challenges that all of marketers out there talk about, like, hey, this is the last funnel, or, this is the funnel that you need to create. So all of those basic marketing stuff, most probably the audience that are watching this summit, you've outgrown that. And the problems that you are dealing with right now are the growth pains, something like tech stack issues or inefficient systems, operational challenges. A lot of you talked about reporting issues or legal, taxes. All of these topics are going to be discussed today in the session, in the many sessions today and tomorrow. The summit was organized by a company called DepositFix. This is a payment platform with billing and checkout modules in one platform, designed specifically for coaching businesses. One of my colleagues, who also happens to be my husband, will be speaking later today. We'll see if he's actually going to be this session right now or later today. We'll see. This summit is live. It is not pre-recorded. And because it is live, there can be some downsides. Like possibly one downside can happen, like a speaker is not going to show up. We'll see if Ed is going to be able to find his way into AirMeet and be able to join. But so far, he's not here. So if that is the case, then we'll just switch and there's going to be another session happening right now. Now, quickly, how to navigate the summit today and tomorrow. So we'll have separate sessions for each talk, which means that all of us, including you, are going to be hopping between the sessions, which also makes it a little bit easier to see which session is about to start. And you're also going to be notified every time that a session is going to be starting. And I think that is it for a quick introduction. Let me see if our speaker has joined yet. Okay, how about this? Let's go ahead and start with Denis, and Denis is going to talk about the payment gateway risks. Let's move on to this session. Denis, can you raise your hand? I think I'll be able to let you in once you raise your hand. Invite to stage. There you go. I think you need to confirm. Hey, Denis.
Yeah, Simon. Hey.
Awesome.
First speaker. Thank you, Natalie, for intro. And yeah, we're super excited to host this session, and we think it's going to be very valuable to everyone who have like growth, scaling business. Everyone is talking about marketing and sales, but we're going to talk about some different problems. So
really quick, Denis, I think you're using a different microphone. Can you just click on the 3 dots at the bottom that says more options and change your microphone settings?
Try that.
No, I think it should be in AirMeet. I think it should be in AirMeet, not in your global settings. If you click the 3 dots that says more options, you'll find audio and video settings, and there you'll be able to check your microphone.
Is it better now?
No, it's the same. Have you changed it in AirMeet?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, maybe that's the one. It's okay. Let's go like that.
Try to maybe turn the volume up.
Yep, that's better. It is.
Okay. Good. All right. So again, yeah, I'm very excited to be here. So I'm Denis, and founder CEO of company DepositFix, who organized this summit. And we are a payment platform for scaling coaching businesses, and we solve problems specifically for businesses that have some complex payment challenges. We have checkout, billing platforms, some fraud protection, and many things that you need to solve some billing operation problems. And my talk today is going to be about payment gateway risks. You might not know some of those risks yet, but just to educate you about some potential problems so you can be aware before they happen. Okay, start and share my screen, right? So payment gateway risk. Since we're working a lot with the payments, we're seeing different cases when payments go wrong and what happens with the payments. So imagine this business dream. Close your eyes. So you have a perfect product for your audience. You have great marketing campaigns so everybody knows about your product. You have the pricing strategy that is also right. And you have customers banging into your doors, shouting like, "Hey, take my money, take my money." But you cannot take their money because there is an issue with your payment processor. You just cannot process the payment. Why? How can it go wrong? So, and it happens more often than you think. And we'll go through multiple scenarios when payment gateway might be a bottleneck for the business. And since it's one of the most crucial piece of the business in operation, we should take it very, very seriously. And we'll discuss why we need backup when something goes wrong. First of all, about payment gateways. In payments process, there are multiple levels and some subsystems involved into payment processing. There are merchant accounts, there are acquirers, there are banks, there are payment processors, Visa, MasterCard, all of these things. But just to summarize and make it simple, let's say payment processor, it's a software system that allows to move money from your customers' credit cards or other bank accounts to your bank account. And there are many different payment gateways and processors. The most popular ones that you probably know are PayPal, Stripe, and some others. So now let's talk about some risks with those. So first one is outage. So like with any software system, sometimes it happens that software just doesn't work. There's some error. There is server goes down or something like that. And if it's a single provider, you just cannot take money because it's down. It just doesn't work. And there's nothing you can do. You just sit and wait until it goes up. The second risk is geographic restriction. So if you sell internationally, then you will face some problems related to currencies, to conversion rates, and some other issues that we'll talk about later. There are also payment method limitations. There is a huge list of different payment methods, and it just not just credit cards. There's PayPal, direct debit payments, stuff like that. And you need to be aware of what your audience is using, what they prefer to use. And the last one, and this is most dangerous, it's when a gateway account is terminated. And that's it, it's permanent and you cannot use it anymore. And we'll talk in details about that as well. So let's start with the risk number one. So basically it means the payment gateway is down and it just doesn't work or works partially. It can happen globally or it can happen in some regions, but it happens. It's rare, but still it happens. And when stuff goes wrong, it goes globally and it affects a lot of different merchants. There's a list of different percentages by different gateways, and estimated loss of all these outages is $4 billion. Usually they go down for a couple hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, but it's still a lot of money that companies lose because of that. Risk number two is when you sell internationally, there are multiple things that you need to be aware of. So you might think if you charge in US dollars, even outside, it doesn't apply in your case, but yes, it does apply in your case. So for example, if somebody is using a credit card from bank outside of United States, but you charge in USD, first the processor need to convert the product price to foreign currency. Then they charge that amount and convert the funds back to your currency, to USD, and send to your bank account. So it's a complicated process. And as a result of that, sure, first of all, you get not the best conversion rates by the banks. Second, you getting charged at least 1% on top of the standard processing fee when you do an international transaction. Then there's such thing as acceptance rate or approval rate. It's how many credit cards are approved for payments. And if there's not strong international presence of a gateway in a country where you charge your customers, then it can drop. So for example, it can drop by 10 or 20% comparing to local credit cards. Another thing, there is compliance. So some countries, they have their own rules for their local banks. So for example, SCA, it's a popular thing in Europe. It stands for strong customer authentication. So it means a customer need to bank sends a text message to a customer to approve the transaction. And if your payment gateway doesn't implement that, it means you just cannot accept payments in specific countries. And then another thing is local payment methods. And there are different preferences by different regions. So credit cards are not that popular as we think everywhere. So for example, there are local systems like IDU in Netherlands or Support in Germany or BACS in UK. These are standard methods and people expect to pay using those methods. And if you don't accept those, then again, you're missing out on the sales. Risk number 3. So this is related to local payment methods that we just described, but you need to know what your customers prefer in terms of the payments. It can depend on different customer groups or different offers. So for example, if you sell on mobile, obviously you need to accept Google and Apple Pay. If you have high ticket items, then it makes sense to use bank transfers or buy now and pay it later methods. So you need to know your audience and you need to know what they prefer to pay for a specific type of product. And the last risk and the most dangerous, this is when payment account is deactivated, it's closed, and that can be literally a disaster for a business. So usually it's permanent. So gateways, they rarely reverse a decision. So most likely you need to create a new account and most likely you need another provider because the existing one will just not approve you anymore. And in many cases, there is no warning notice. It's just a sudden email. Hey, your account is suspended. That's it. You cannot use anymore. Your money on hold, and that's it. And this is actually intentional. They do it this way because if there is some illegal activity within your account, so you cannot move the money around. And another thing that the funds that you have on the balance with the processor, they will be put on hold. You might eventually get those funds, but it might take 6 months, 12 months, something like that. And in some cases, you can even owe money because there are penalties by MasterCard, Visa, or banks. And then in that case, you will not get your money back because they will be hoped to pay those penalties. And then there is match listing. I hope you'll never hear that match listing in relationship with your payment processor because it's very, very dangerous situation to be in. So match stands for member alert to control high-risk merchants. And it's a blacklist controlled by MasterCard. And this is the list shared between gateways and banks. So basically, it's like having a bankruptcy in your credit history. It would be very hard to open a new account even with other gateways. So I would not recommend to go to the mesh list. So let's talk about, so if you don't do anything illegal, does it happen? How often does it happen when account might be blocked? So unfortunately, it happens. And there are a number of cases like that. So it happens more than we think. So Stripe, PayPal, they close account, suddenly send emails, and you cannot use your account. You cannot withdraw the money. And there are some cases. So for example, I'll explain one story. There is a story of a company called Florly. It was a marketplace that was selling digital products on behalf of their customers. And one of their customers was selling something that violated copyrights from another company. Their payment account was blocked, and they got a penalty of $425,000. That penalty was by the banks and MasterCard and Visa, and they were put on match a list. And when I say it was a marketplace, basically they are no longer in business. They had to shut down the company because of that. So it was final thing for that company. So let's talk about some red flags and how to identify that your account might be in danger. All of that, it doesn't happen without a reason. There are some reasons why account might be blocked. So first of all, it's excessive chargebacks. So chargeback, it happens when a customer requests to cancel a specific transaction from their credit card to bank directly. It's a little button that says, I don't recognize this transaction, please revert it. This is called chargeback. And those chargeback cost everyone in the payment infrastructure. Obviously, bank is responsible for that. So they revert the transaction. So they pay for that transaction. And Visa, MasterCard, payment gateways, and then everyone in the hierarchy of payment is finalized by those chargebacks. Another red flag is unusual activity. For example, sudden jump in sales. So for example, you have your business for 2 years, and let's say your usual revenue is $100,000 a month. And then out of nowhere, you have 2 million worth of transactions. That's a huge red flag for payment processor because they don't expect that kind of jump in revenue. And it means that something is going wrong. Maybe your credit cards were stolen or you're doing something illegal. So it's a red flag. Then some policy violations. So like an example with the Florly, the customer was selling copyrighted content. And you might not know what policy you're violating before it's actually flagged by the processor. There are some industries that are red flagged or rejected by default, like gambling or company providing loans or adult content. We'll talk about those later as well. And the final one is fraud activity. Fraud here activity means, it doesn't mean that you commit the fraud, but you getting attacked by hackers, by carders. And also you might not know about that. And I'll explain this in more details in the next slide as well. So about chargebacks. As I said before, there is a penalty to you as a merchant. First of all, you need to reverse the transaction. So basically you put everything back. If there was a dispute, and on top of that, you pay $15 or $30 penalty per transaction, depending on the gateway. So why it might happen? So first of all, it might be just some bad business practice. So some companies, they offer some product, but then don't deliver. Or, for example, people don't recognize in their statements, in their bank statement, they don't recognize the name of your company, or they don't remember paying you. And then they see unusual transaction and say, oh, that's strange. I don't remember paying for this product or service. Maybe it's fraud. So I'd rather cancel it. Also, it happens with annual subscriptions. So for example, person subscribes to an annual subscription, forgets about that. Then in a year, they get charged again, don't recognize this transaction, and then filing a dispute. So another thing is fraud. Again, this is attacks. It's not that you committed the fraud when you get attacked. And some payment gateways, they are very sensitive to dispute rate. For example, Stripe, they see just 0.75% of transaction being disputed is already a high risk. So to fix that, so make sure that you have correct statement description. So people know that you're charging them and they recognize those transactions. Then manage customer expectations. So make sure that they know when they charge, especially for annual subscriptions. Send them email. Hey, we gotta charge your credit card for this kind of product in 1 week or 3 days. So they know that they're gonna be charged. And also make sure that they know what they're paying for, so they don't file dispute. And also use fraud protection systems like Stripe Runner or DepositFix that I also go describe later. So a list of risky businesses. Usually there's a businesses that already fall into category with a high chargeback rate. And usually either payment gateways just don't work with them directly at all, or they put them on a specific list that needs additional monitoring. There are also gateways that work specifically with high risk merchants. So if you fall into categories like that, or if you teach something on course, something remotely related to traveling, gambling, adult content, sometimes it's just better to use those gateways that's specifically created for high risk merchants. So now talk about the fraud attacks. It's a huge problem. Majority of payment fraud, they happen online. 76% of all fraud payments, of all payments, they committed online. Obviously, because it's easier to pay online rather than going to a store and then paying with a stolen credit card. It's a huge industry. So it's $28 billion of loss annually, and it increases every year. So how it happens? Hackers steal credit cards in batches, like a lot of credit cards. They hack into banks, they hack into checkout systems or stores or some of that. And then they sell those credit cards to carders. Carders is a different type of group that then use those cards to actually benefit. But before they use the credit cards, they need to know which ones are good, which ones are expired. So they need to test them. That's what you can fall victim of. So card testing attacks. How it happens? Basically, carders will create some programs that test a bunch of credit cards, thousands of transactions. They go through online forms and see, does it go, does it allow to charge or not? And it just a lot of transactions at the same time. So basically you might have thousands of transactions just so they can just test if those card works. And based on our experience, we have experienced multiple of those with our clients. Hopefully we've been able to protect those. So first one we had in 2021, there was almost 60,000 of cards and they were trying to charge $1 each. So basically it was almost 60,000 of worth of transactions. And we blocked all of that, and the customers didn't even know that that happened. Second example is the recent one. So 2023, it was 16,000 transactions, and it was much, much bigger transaction, $797. And it was worth more than $12 million. And that's what we protected from customer. If it was not protected, then it would have been a disaster for the client. First of all, it's 16,000 transaction worth of chargebacks. And then it's just a lot of liability. So in terms of protection for that, there are multiple systems. One of them is Stripe Radar. It's included to Stripe account. You can use that. And you can use some other ways. And we have our own protection at DepositFix checkout as well to prevent these kind of transactions. So some recommendations. What do you need to watch out? So first of all, to de-risk your business, you can use multiple gateways just in case. Even if you don't use it regularly for payments, just create a different gateway. So in case something happens, you can just switch to another gateway very quick and still process the payments. Use your own merchant account. So you have your own relationship with the banks and payment processors. And then in that case, it would be easier to communicate and fix any of those problems. Then have monitoring of chargebacks. Make sure that you don't cross that line of 0.75%. Fraud protection system. Yeah, something like Stripe Radar or DepositFix system. And do regular payouts. So basically, don't hold your money into payment processor. Just transfer them to your bank account as soon as possible. So in case your account is blocked, you don't lose those funds that already sitting there. And yeah, as I said, with DepositFix, you get those multiple gateways, and we'll be doing payment routing. So you can do automatic routing to different gateways based on country, based on fraud level, based on different scenarios. We also have done for you service. So we can sit with you and check what are the red flags you can identify. We can work with you together to minimize the risk. So yeah, we're looking for 5 companies who we can work with in terms of minimizing the gateway risk. Doesn't matter which gateway you use, doesn't matter which checkout or billing platform. So you can just go to depositfix.com/demo, schedule a call with us, and mention gateway risk, and we'll just work with you and see which red flags you can minimize. Yeah, it's just like insurance policy. So you don't lose one of the main component of your business, ability to take payments.
Awesome. Anything else, Dennis?
No, I think that's it. If we have any questions, we can go.
Nope, I think we're running out of time, but thank you so much for sharing this presentation.
Right.
And everyone will look forward to seeing you in the next session, which you noticed we switched the session. So Ad is going to be in the next room. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you in the next room.
Yeah.